Okay, so we start now. Now I will come back here. Before that, what I do is, let me go to Article 5. So we had talked about until Article 4b, which was AI literacy, okay, and then we had also gone through some of the definitions as and when we had encountered them. Now, so Title 2 of this Act talks about the prohibited artificial intelligence practices, and the following artificial intelligence practices shall be prohibited. Shall in legal terminology means there is no discretion to anyone, okay. Shall prohibited means it should be prohibited, that's all, okay. So we are talking about Article 5 now. Let us go to, right. So prohibited AI practices. Regarding the list of prohibited AI practices in Article 5, so now either pay attention, okay. Regarding the list of prohibited AI practices in Article 5, so Article 5 just talks about the list of prohibited AI practices. So Article 5 comprises, so the compromise text here means, see, in EU there is a lengthy regulation process, okay. So cutting that short, I am just saying compromise text means compromise between various EU parties like EU Parliament, EU Commission and the European Council, okay. So this text includes changes as previously accepted by the Committee of Permanent Representatives in the Council's revised mandate. We don't need to understand this. So this means that the list includes prohibition of real-time biometric identification. So this is at the top. This means that the list includes prohibition of real-time biometric identification by law enforcement authorities in publicly accessible spaces, but with some notable and clearly defined exceptions as provided in Article 5(1)(d), which are now subject to a range of safeguards, including monitoring and oversight measures and limited reporting obligations at EU level. Additional accepted prohibitions include untargeted, so okay, what was the first point? Who cannot do what? This part here. So prohibition of real-time biometric identification by law enforcement authorities. So give me an example of law enforcement authority. Police, okay. So police, basically entities like police cannot do real-time biometric identification. Other thing, additional accepted prohibitions include untargeted scraping of facial images for the purpose of creating or expanding a facial recognition database, emotion recognition. So and we talk about just this. This is another one. So additional accepted prohibitions include untargeted scraping of facial images for the purpose of a creating or expanding facial recognition database. What does this mean now? Untargeted scraping of facial images. That means you can't simply go to internet, scrape all of internet and collect faces of human beings, okay, for the purpose of creating or expanding a facial recognition database. What about Facebook? Okay, let us first just talk about what is prohibited and then we'll talk about, okay. Next thing, emotion recognition, but only at the workplace and in educational institutions, and with the exception for safety and medical reasons. So why this should be prohibited? Emotion recognition but only at the workplace. So why should emotion recognition be prohibited? Okay. See, these things also vary, from culture to culture. Like EU has seen, Europe has seen Holocaust, right? So there a lot of emphasis is there on protecting people, a group of people from, the whole everything. Okay. Now in US, if you go, the regime changes. There more emphasis is on free speech, right? I don't think fall in either of these two. Okay, so we might be having something else, but in this case we are just trying to understand a law in EU. So that's why it is. So that whatever it is. Okay. So emotion recognition, we'll see the exact details of it when we'll talk about Article 5. Right now we are just enumerating, and I'm just giving you the list. So emotion recognition, but only at the workplace and in educational institutions. So in a classroom, you start using CCTV camera, you start using AI to recognize emotions. I accuse you of misbehavior and throw you out of my class. Okay, this kind of thing should not be done based on AI. So AI should not be used for this. A very limited prohibition of biometric categorizations based on certain specific beliefs or characteristics, as well as a limited and targeted ban on individual predictive policing. So police cannot target one person and then start predicting things. Okay. So again, we'll go into details. The wording on the predictive policing ban has been slightly modified from now what it was, and it covers systems which assess or predict the risk of a natural person to commit a criminal offense based solely on the profiling of a natural person or on assessing their personality traits and characteristics. However, this prohibition will not apply to AI systems used to support human assessment of the involvement of a person in a criminal activity. So if you use, so this part, see, if you are doing predictive policing solely based on profiling of a natural person, right? But if a human being starts using AI, so if a human input is there, so however this prohibition will not apply to AI systems used to support the human assessment. So if human is trying to assess something and then they are trying to help use of AI, that is okay, that is not prohibited. Finally, it is important to point out that as part of the compromise, other biometric categorization systems and emotion recognition systems, as well as post-remote biometric identification systems, which have not been included in the list of prohibitions in Article 5, have been added to Annexure 3, the list of high-risk AI systems, with some further limitations of their scope. So what are the applications we have talked about which are prohibited? So first was right. So not facial recognition, but so we'll come to the details. Okay, right now we just need to remember three things like emotion recognition, post biometric, real time biometric identification, emotion recognition, unbounded scraping for facial images. Okay, exact details we'll see now. So in addition to being included in the list of high-risk AI systems in Annexure 3, the use of post-remote biometric identification by law enforcement authorities has been made subject to some additional safeguards in Article 29. So this is basically fundamental rights impact assessment that we'll see. These safeguards include some limited transparency measures and the requirement for law enforcement authorities to request an authorization for the use of post-remote biometric identification, which could be given by a judicial authority, that means a court can give it, or an administrative authority whose decision is binding and subject to a judicial review. This can be done prior or ex post within 48 hours. Furthermore, the compromise text clarifies that post-remote biometric identification should not be used for law enforcement purposes in an untargeted way without any link to a criminal offense, a criminal proceeding, a genuine and present or genuine and foreseeable threat of a criminal offence, or the search of a specific missing person. What does this mean? This paragraph says just one thing. How many full stops do you see? 1, 2, 3. No, there are many. So, what is it essentially talking about? Post remote biometric identification. What they are saying is, we are not banning it, but it is still in high risk, and the police is supposed to go through a lots of checks and balances. So post remote biometric identification is not banned, but the police has to get so basically a kind of permission from a judicial authority or an administrative authority that is subject to a judicial review. Now, exceptions for law enforcement authorities. The compromise agreement preserves all the exceptions for law enforcement authorities that were added in the Council's revised mandate. So, Council means European Council. So, there are three bodies: European Commission, European Parliament and European Council. Okay. So, they all three have to agree on all these things. So, include derogation from conformity assessment and the possibility to start real world testing of high risk AI systems without prior authorization. Okay, so we will talk about this in the next classes now. So, right now we are going to discuss these two things that is provided in Article 5. Is there a better way of doing this back and forth? No, this splitting screen should have been here, but okay. So, Article 5 now, let us read it. So, the following artificial intelligence practices shall be prohibited. When it says shall, that means mandatorily prohibited. The placing on the market, putting into service, or use of an AI system that deploys subliminal techniques beyond a person's consciousness, or purposefully manipulative or deceptive techniques with the objective to or the effect of materially distorting a person's or a group of persons' behavior by appreciably impairing the person's ability to make an informed decision, thereby causing the person to take a decision that that person would not have otherwise taken in a manner that causes or is likely to cause that person or another person or a group of persons significant harm. What does it mean? Right, so what does this word mean? So basically it goes beyond, it does not reach to your consciousness level, right? Something that touches you, but you are not aware that you are being affected by this. And they do this in advertising always. Now, subliminal advertising is banned since 1958 in the United States, Europe and Australia. Okay. So, we are not used to, these kind of words as far as I know. I am not sure. So, correct me if, so what I tried to do was 9 ads. Now, so 9 ads with subliminal messages you have probably missed. So, let us try to see now. See, so let us say, now this says, so whatever, so 9 subliminal advertising examples that deliver a subtle message. Okay. So, how do I remove, anyway, so Pepsi first came up with this. Now, how is this affecting a user's mind? I think it's very much a matter of culture. So maybe in US, Europe, Australia it does. It was very hard for me to figure out why should it, but anyway, so since there are scientific theories behind it, both kinds. Some people say this thing really exists, some people say you are talking about something that does not exist, okay. But so we wish you a scary Halloween, ad by Pepsi, and this is what it is. Same thing, exact same photo, but caption changed. Everybody wants to be a hero, and now Coca-Cola. And now what it reads here. So this subliminal messaging at its core, subtle but still clever. Pepsi released the image on the left and Coca-Cola responded with the image on the right. Pepsi's original ad is subliminal in that it makes the viewer think and chuckle a bit. It's funny to suggest that getting a Coke when you wanted a Pepsi is scary, because they are talking about Halloween kind of things, okay. Coca-Cola's response is perfect as well and becomes a great learning tool. Sometimes the tagline really does make the image. Now, hard for me, maybe you guys can help me understand this here. I read it, so wherever you look for this subliminal advertising, this will kind of come on the top, and they say this is well done. So subliminal advertising, well done. I like this advertising, but what I don't understand is that subliminal part. I mean, to the extent that the ad says it has to be banned, okay. So let's go for another things now. So Pirates of the Caribbean, what they are saying here, this thing resembles Mickey Mouse, which has been their brand for so many decades now, okay. So okay, this makes sense to me. What is this? What is subliminal with this? No, I am not letting you read that. What is 31? So 31 flavors, okay. Now what is Amazon.com? So we sell everything from A to Z. What is with this? Exactly. So they try to hide, I mean they try to make this cover such that user will think there is a E here, okay. So this was easy. Now तुम इधर आ जाओ. All right. Now in this case, two friends. So basically whatever, fairly well known, but you have missed the subliminal message in it. Notice how the 4th, 5th and 6th letters in the brand name make two friends sharing chips and salsa and so on. So what they are trying to say, I mean you can see other videos too. So there is a 1-minute video on something, right, and there is exactly just one frame of McDonald's. So you are looking at a news, one frame of McDonald's, so it will just flash, it will barely flash, and people say that it increases sales, it increases sales of whatever thing that you are seeing, okay. Now coming back to what we were doing. So placing on the market, putting into service or use of an AI system that deploys a subliminal technique beyond a person's consciousness or purposefully manipulative or deceptive techniques. So now we understand more or less what it is, that without really going through the consciousness of a person, you try to affect their ability to take some judgment. Okay. Now, this itself was probably not wrong. Let's read further. With an objective to or the effect of materially distorting a person or group of persons behavior by appreciably impairing the person's ability to make an informed decision. Now, this second part, where can it be dangerous, more dangerous? We have seen just, so we saw these advertisements just to understand the meaning of subliminal. Now, once we have understood the meaning of subliminal, tell me this part. With the objective or to effect of materially distorting a person's or group of persons behavior by appreciably impairing the person's ability to make an informed decision. Anybody remembers that Cambridge Analytica case?
Yes.
What was that? So users will not be even aware. So you are actually doing all these kind of damages, but users won't. So if in this way you can affect the minds of your voters, that's a huge thing. Okay. So that's why they say such things should be banned. I mean, this kind of advertising is banned for whatever reasons that is there, but there's more to it. Okay, thereby causing the person to take a decision that person would not have otherwise taken in a manner that causes or is likely to cause that person itself, that person himself, herself, or some another person or group of persons significant harm. That means it does not matter to whom is the harm occurred. It can be that person himself, herself, it can be some another person or a group of persons, right? As long as all these things take place together, that particular AI which does this is banned in EU. Okay? हाँ.
सर सिग्निफिकेंट हार्म से मतलब किस एक्सटेंट तक हार्म मतलब कोई डिग्री होगी ना?
Right, court will decide.
सर लास्ट क्वेश्चन था कि वो बैन एडवर्टाइजिंग आपने अगर सिक्स 1958 एडवर्टाइजिंग बैन हाउ वी डू वी हैव दोस एग्जांपल्स अगर वो बैन है तो फिर
No, so those authorities that are banning it, right? So there must be a threshold of something. Everything must have a threshold, right? Huh. So there must be a law that is regulating that and so on. So details you will find there. All right. So this was the first thing. Second, the placing on the market, putting into service or use of an AI system that exploits any of the vulnerabilities of a person or a specific group of persons due to their age, disability, or a specific social or economic situation. Right? So let's pause here. What does it mean? The placing on the market, putting into service or use of an AI system that exploits any of the vulnerabilities of a person. So just by reading this, do you agree that something like this should be banned? Because see, here you are talking about that exploits any of the vulnerabilities of a person due to their age, so they can be children or elderly or even young people, disability of a specific social or economic situation, okay, with the objective to or the effect of materially distorting the behavior of that person or a person pertaining to that group in a manner that causes or is reasonably likely to cause that person or another person a significant harm. क्या चीज? Say that loudly. No, I am not understanding. So, what is your argument? What is it that you want to counter? What is it that you want to explain?
अभी अभी मैं एआई के थ्रू कर ले रहा हूँ, बट आगे में तो हम ये है ना कि मुझे नहीं आता, मैं प्लेसमेंट कैसे करूँ? तो इवेंचुअली तो हर चीज हार्म करेगी करेगी।
So maybe some of you collaborate and explain me what is he saying. What is he trying to say?
सर मतलब वो ये बोलना चाह रहा है कि अभी जो वो कोड करता है उससे वो एआई का यूज कर रहा है, जिससे उसके कोड का मिशन हो जाए तो उसका काम हो जा रहा है।
So what you are basically saying is this way almost everything will be harmful.
तो ये बहुत ब्रॉड है।
That we have talked about in the second class itself, right? That we have talked about in second class itself, that even the definition of AI is too broad. So see, this legislation, from what I have heard and what I have read, this is obviously not perfect, because you are trying to regulate something that is evolving so fast. Okay, things changes almost daily, so it's difficult to regulate this, but at the same time it's necessary to regulate, because it is very powerful to even affect whole of your population. Okay, so before the harm is done, EU says we want to regulate, but this has the other side of it too. What is it? It stifles innovation, because now companies, they don't know what is allowed, what is not allowed. So companies don't want to be in a situation where they end up violating, some serious laws. Okay. On the placing on the the placing on the market or putting into service for this specific purpose or use of biometric categorization systems that categorize individually. So what's wrong with this now? So placing on the market or putting into service for this specific purpose or use of biometric categorization systems that categorize individually natural persons based on their biometric data to deduce or infer their race, political opinions, trade union memberships, religious or philosophical beliefs, sex life or sexual orientation. What does it mean? What is banned?
सर बायोमेट्रिक डेटा से पर्सन की रेस, पॉलिटिकल ओपिनियन ये सब एक्सट्रैक्ट करके तो वनरेबल बनाना, डिस्क्रिमिनेट करना।
Okay, first tell me, do you see any word like discrimination here? Do you see any word like significant harm here? So if you look at these words, do you see anything like materially distorting the behavior of that person? Do you see with the objective of? Do you see the system that exploits?
सर डिड्यूस
Sorry?
इसलिए सर डिड्यूस है।
No, so you are trying to deduce or infer their race or something else. So deduction is fine, but you don't see words like exploits or maybe with the effect of materially distorting the behavior or likely to cause that person or another person significant harm. Those things are banned only if they do significant harm, when their objective is to effect materially distorting. In this case, it simply says banned. So in Indian context, let's say if I make an app that screens, screens everybody who is entering in my restaurant, and I try to figure out this person is South Indian, so I'll offer. So I'll show dosas more to him or her compared to a person who is coming from some other place. This from a restaurant owner perspective should be okay, but here what it says, no, it does not matter what is your objective. Anywhere they cite objective, they don't say your objective is malified or not. It does not matter. If you are trying to categorize human beings according to these things, then it is simply banned. Make sense? Okay.
सर फिर कैटेगराइज नहीं करेंगे तो बिजनेस चलेगा कैसे? सर ये तो और तो मतलब कि एक सर्टेन एक्सटेंट तक के लिए बैन करना चाहिए ना, मतलब कि अगर ये पर्सनल डेटा ये समझ में आता है कि इनको यूज करके एक्सप्लॉइट किया जा सकता है, बट कि किस एक्सटेंट तक यूज कर सकते हो उस पर बैन होना चाहिए, पूरे प्रोसेस पे कैसे?
See, that is what I am saying, that it depends on which culture you are talking about.
सर फॉर इंस्टेंस सर अब अगर आप यूएस का एग्जांपल लोगे तो मार्केट सेगमेंटेशन हो जाएगा, जैसे ब्लैक पीपल्स की ये माना जाता है कि उन्हें चिकन वाटरमेलन और ये सब चीज़ें पसंद है, तो रियली उन्हें ये सब चीज़ें पसंद है, तो जैसे पॉपकॉर्न और जो केएफसी है वो ब्लैक डोमिनेटेड एरियाज में वैसे मतलब ये मार्केट सेगमेंटेशन हो गया कि ब्लैक लोगों को ज़्यादा चिकन और वाटरमेलन रिलेटेड सर्विसेज ऑफर हो रही है एज कम्पेयर टू वाइट्स, मतलब इसको कहीं किसी एक्सटेंट
No, but that is okay, na? I mean, you decide where you put.
सर लेकिन फिर वो एक ही एक्सटेंट हो गया ना?
No, it is not the same, na?
सर बट ये सेम टू सर सोशल मीडिया पे भी तो होती है, वो भी सर एक कैटेगराइजेशन करते हैं कि सिर्फ इन लोगों को हमेशा पे उनको कुछ एड्स दिखा सकते हैं बिकॉज़
Sure, yes, a lot of categorization goes. So, for example, yes. So, continue with your example, what you were saying.
मतलब मैं ये बोल रहा था सर सेम टू सर सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे भी होती है, वो अभी एक कैटेगराइजेशन हमारे जो होते बनाते हैं उस हिसाब से हम लोग को कुछ एड्स दिखाते हैं
Right, right.
हाँ वहाँ पे बायोमेट्रिक नहीं है बट हमारे कुछ पर्सनल डेटा
No, so biometric, okay, so we'll talk about what biometric means. Biometric covers everything. So, iris scan, fingerprints, face, gait analysis, so the list is huge. I mean, somewhere here they have it. Right. So, see here. The notion of biometric identification as used in this regulation should be defined as automated recognition of physical, physiological and behavioral human features such as face, eye movement, body shape, voice, prosody, gait, posture, heart rate, blood pressure, odor, keystrokes characteristics for the purpose of establishing an individual's identity by comparing biometric data of that individual to stored biometric data of individuals in a reference database, irrespective of whether the individual has given its consent or not. So, see, this is, how many of you have seen this? Mission Impossible 5. Remember, they do this gait analysis in this, that even if you are able to they talk about कि we'll go with this face, but eventually it will do analysis of your, so it will do that gait analysis, GAIT, that means how you walk, okay, that is also unique to every person. So just because your iris scan has matched, your face has matched, does not mean you are the same person. All these characteristics should match. हाँ.
बायोमेट्रिक्स की जरूरत ही नहीं है, मेरे फिजिकल फीचर्स अमेज़न को पता है.
Sorry?
और सर जो फेस आई है जो भी आई
Let him. हाँ.
सर मतलब कि चलो बायोमेट्रिक्स का मान लें कि वो बहुत एक्यूरेट और क्लोज डेटा देते हैं, लेकिन अगर मैं अमेज़न से रेगुलरली शॉपिंग कर रहा हूँ, आईटीएस खरीद रहा हूँ, शर्ट्स खरीद रहा हूँ, शूज़ खरीद रहा हूँ, पैंट्स खरीद रहा हूँ, तो उनको इवेंचुअली मेरे बॉडी स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में और ये सब चीज़ों के बारे में पता चल जाए.
Right. What is it that you are seeking ban on? नहीं, see. No, what is that is being banned here now? Let us go back.
कलेक्शन ऑफ बायोमेट्रिक डेटा
collection of biometrics data.
उसके हिसाब से हमें थोड़ा
See, it was BA, this one, right? So, placing on the market or putting into service this specific purpose for the use of biometric categorization systems that categorize individually natural persons based on their biometric data to deduce or infer their race and so on. Yes. Continue now.
सर जैसे उसके अंदर बायोमेट्रिक डेटा में एक फिजिकल वाला भी था, तो डेफिनेटली अमेज़न को पता है कि मेरा फिजिकल स्ट्रक्चर कैसा होगा, वो डिड्यूस कर सकता है इसे.
Okay.
सो मतलब कि वो इनडायरेक्टली बायोमेट्रिक का कैटेगराइजेशन नहीं हुआ, उसने डिड्यूस तो कर लिया ना कि मैं फिजिकली कैसा हूँ.
See, Google and all these, they already try to do this. So for example, Google, even if you don't mention your gender, right, it will try to infer, so it will try to assign a gender to you, even though you say you don't select any of the genders there. Okay, so it will try to assign, and then it will try to show you ads according to that gender. And then in the first class we had already seen that there was a problem with these advertising things on Google and Facebook. What was that? Women were being shown less lucrative jobs compared to men. Okay.
The thing is, they are talking about placing on the market or putting into services. If the company uses the algorithm inside of their company for predicting individual behavior, inside they use, but they are using.
No, the thing is, this is not a law yet. This is not a law yet, and that's why US is calling this law as a law that is trying to bash US companies. Because in the end, it's Amazon, it's Google, it's Facebook, OpenAI and all these, because hardly any European company will be, right now directly impacted from this. Who will be impacted are Google's and Microsoft's and so on, right? So see the idea, and if you go to US, I think US or Europe, they place a particular emphasis on zero racism. So here you see, they are not talking about whether it has any kind of significant harm or not, whether it tries to exploit something, even if you are trying to do a genuine thing. For example, that dosa example. So I have a camera at my gate of my restaurant. If a person from southern India enters, I try to show him or her or them South Indian dishes. So if I try to do this kind of discrimination in US, this kind of AI is simply banned. Sorry, in US no, in Europe. And it is not, see, every law is like this. It is not for us to decide what should be there, because there are legislators who are doing it, and they are supposed to be our representatives only. फिर तो
और सर शायद से EU ने memes को बैन भी किया है.
See, all these acts, they are trying to regulate digital space. Okay, it is very, very difficult for law enforcement to, so this is already happening with GDPR. They already have a strict set of rules, but for many clauses, for many articles, it is very difficult to enforce. I mean, it is very difficult for the enforcement agency to enforce it. So you make a law, and if nobody is following it, it becomes very difficult. So all these laws, even though they are there, but it's very difficult to enforce. Even though so this act tries to kind of give some kind of directions on how to enforce this as well, but we know it's virtual space and very difficult to enforce anything.
सर इसमें एक और पॉइंट ये भी तो आता है कि लाइक अगर आप उन पे ज़्यादा प्रेशर डालोगे तो आपकी मार्केट को लीव कर सकते हैं और वो कई बार ज़्यादा
They won't. Nobody wants to leave the market. You do whatever you want to do. I don't want to leave your market. In fact, you see the EU has, from what I last know, EU has imposed a fine of 850 million on Amazon, 850 million, close to 1 billion. I think 750 million on Google, and there are other examples too. But if once in a while you impose a fine of 1 billion on Facebook, they'll say fine. 1 billion per year extra for these kind of things. And they'll move on. So, I mean, this is what you will think from the company's perspective. Okay, maybe my cost has increased by 1 billion, but this I have to now fetch from somewhere else. So, of course, I won't be paying it. In some way, my users will be paying that too. So, exception to prohibition in this clause. So, this prohibition does not cover, let's continue, this prohibition does not cover any labeling or filtering of lawfully acquired biometric data sets such as images based on biometric data or categorization of biometric data in the area of law enforcement. So, only law enforcement agencies are allowed to use it. Any example? So, for example, police may keep a database of biometric data of offenders. The placing on the market, putting into service or use of AI systems for the evaluation or classification of natural persons or groups thereof over a certain period of time based on their social behavior or known, inferred or predicted personal or personality characteristics with the social score leading to either or both of the following. What does it mean? This part until here. From what I last read a couple of months ago, I read somewhere that China has 12 CCTV cameras, per 12 citizen they have one CCTV camera. Right. Right. So, this is what they are talking about. This is banned in EU. Okay. So then you guys know about these social credits. Okay. So, they basically try to label a person, give a score between 0 to 1, whether you are a good citizen or a bad citizen, and this simply is banned in EU. So, either or both of the following: detrimental or unfavorable treatment of certain natural persons or whole group thereof in social contexts that are unrelated to the context in which the data was originally generated or collected. So, you collect data for one reason. So, for example, you collect data for one reason and start using it for other, that is not allowed. Detrimental or unfavorable treatment of certain natural persons or groups thereof that is unjustified or disproportionate to their social behavior or its gravity. So, basically social scoring is banned. That means you can't say, you can't assign 0.1 to me and 0.9 to all of you, and whenever police has to make a decision, they will always catch me even though someone else might have done the crime. Okay, so now the use of real time. So, I think everybody sitting here in this room understands this. So, I have not gone to the definitions today. The use of real time remote biometric identification systems in publicly accessible spaces for the purpose of law enforcement, unless in as far as such use is strictly necessary for one of the following objectives. Now, when should real time remote identification be allowed? Easy to think about this. So, the targeted search for specific victims of abduction, trafficking in human beings and sexual exploitation of human beings, as well as search for missing persons. Okay, so that is an okay exception. So, this is exception. Okay. The prevention of a specific substantial and imminent threat to the life or physical safety of natural persons, or a genuine and present or genuine and foreseeable threat of a terrorist attack. The localization or identification of a person suspected of having committed a criminal offence for the purposes of conducting a criminal investigation, prosecution or executing a criminal penalty for offences. So, again this is too specific to EU, because So they come to member states as well and punishable in the member state concerned. So let's just stop here. The localization or identification of a person suspected of having committed a criminal offense. Okay. So if you are trying to look for the localization and identification of a person suspected of having committed a criminal offense for the purposes of conducting a criminal investigation, prosecution or executing a criminal penalty for offences referred to in Annexure 2A, so they list something, and punishable in the member state concerned by a custodial sentence or a detention order for a maximum period of at least 4 years. I don't understand this. For a maximum period of at least 4 years. What does this mean? No, for a maximum period of at least 4 years.
कम से कम at least 4 years.
And this paragraph is without prejudice to the provisions of Article 9 GDPR. Fine. Is this enough for today?
Yes, sir.
Let us finish this clause and then we go, because then we'll come to second 1A. Okay. So 5-10 minutes more. The placing on the market, putting into service for this specific purpose or use of an AI system for making risk assessment of natural persons. So again, this is easy. For making risk assessment of natural persons in order to assess or predict the risk of a natural person to commit a criminal offense. What does it mean? So just read until this comma here. See, this line is common everywhere. So for making risk assessment of natural persons in order to assess or predict the risk of a natural person to commit this is basically predictive policing. Okay. So in order to assess or predict the risk of a natural person, so you start assessing the risk associated with a natural person, whether this person will commit a crime in future or not. Based solely, so again, this is banned, but exception is, so let's read further, based solely on the profiling of a natural person or on assessing their personality traits and characteristics. Based solely, if it is not solely based on this, if it is not solely based on profiling, you are adding some more information, then it is not banned. This prohibition shall not apply to AI systems used to support the human assessment of the involvement of a person in a criminal activity which is already based on an objective and verifiable facts directly linked to a criminal activity. So if you are using AI as a tool, that is okay. You are using AI as a tool to help law enforcement agencies, that is okay. So placing on the market, putting into service for this specific purpose or use of AI systems that create or expand facial recognition databases through the untargeted scraping of facial images from the internet or CCTV footage. What is this? What is banned here? This part is done. Systems that create or expand facial recognition databases through the untargeted scraping of facial images from internet or CCTV footage. That means we cannot simply go to internet, scrape everything, okay, and get faces of human beings. So then a question here, what about Facebook? What about Instagram? So then you have to think what is actually banned. So my question is, you think Facebook or Instagram are captured by this? Why not?
So it's not that like open.
But they are using some AI system.
तो वो एग्रीमेंट में वो
लाइसेंस एंड एग्रीमेंट्स में लिखा हुआ
लाइसेंस और एग्रीमेंट में लिखा हुआ है कि यूजर अपनी मर्जी से देना चाहता है.
If a law says something is banned, right? Any agreement that two parties are doing that is violating that law, that contract is also void. If law says something is banned, how can two persons in that jurisdiction go and, so murder is banned, right? In a way, it is punishable. How can two persons go and make a contract? They do, law will have to catch them because they are violating the law.
उसमें भी तो ये होता है ना कि आप वैसे अपनी मर्जी से इन्वॉल्व हो रहे इस पर्टिकुलर एक्टिविटी में, अगर आपको कुछ हो जाता है तो मतलब हम रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं रहेंगे.
In which case? Like hospitals?
सब बंजी जंपिंग एग्जांपल लेता हूँ.
Right. So, but still if you see, even in this example, so unfortunately if somebody gets hurt, law enforcement agencies, they won't leave them as is. They will try to make sure that there was a due diligence on that agency's part. It can't be so that you are using that same rope for last 10 years, right? So law will still ensure that the company was doing due diligence and it was actually an accident and not a failure of something, not a no, लापरवाही को क्या बोलोगे? Negligence, carelessness, right? In areas of workplace and education. Okay, last thing and then we go. So again, I am leaving an open question here. Why is Facebook covered or not covered here? The placing on the market, putting into service for this specific purpose or use of AI system to infer emotions of a natural person in the areas of workplace and education institutions, except in cases where the use of AI system is intended to be put in place or into the market for medical or safety reasons. So what does emotion recognition mean now? So the notion of emotion recognition system for the purpose of this regulation should be defined as an AI system for the purpose of identifying or inferring emotions or intentions of natural persons on the basis of their biometric data. This refers to emotions or intentions such as happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, disgust, embarrassment, excitement, shame, contempt, satisfaction and amusement. It does not include physical states such as pain or fatigue. It does not refer, for example, to systems used in detecting the state of fatigue of professional pilots or drivers for the purpose of preventing accidents. It also does not include the mere detection of readily apparent expression, gestures or movements unless they are used for identifying or inferring emotions. These expressions can be basic facial expressions such as smile, gestures. Okay. So what is banned in last two cases?
सर सोशल मीडिया का आपने बोला था उसमें सर स्क्रैपिंग थोड़ी ना हो रही है कर सकते हैं अलग बात है पर उसके अंदर स्क्रैपिंग थोड़ी ना कर रहे हैं सर वो तो खुद अपलोड कर रहे हैं
Exactly. So Facebook or Instagram, they don't fall here because they are not doing any untargeted scraping of facial images. It is the user who is signing an agreement, uploading their faces, their data on Facebook. So it is not untargeted. क्या चीज? No, scraping means I go to internet and start scraping everyone's, right? But this is different from you deciding that you want something in public space. It is your photo, you are deciding, right? So right now you know which photo goes public and to whom.
So लाइसेंस एग्रीमेंट में लिखा होगा ना
Between Facebook and you?
Yeah.
Yes. So continue. All right. So done for today. And then tomorrow we'll start. I thought ki we'll be able to complete this article today, but no. So we'll continue from here in the next class. Chalo. So the class is over.